Welcome to Badger Beer Hour 1 week late edition for March 2023. Happy spring, everybody, even though it may not feel like it out there. We've got an interview with Ryan Koga from Karben4, some news, some events, and we'll wrap with the last call, of course. We're going to change it up a bit this month, and we're going to start off with our interview. Here's Chris.
All right. Welcome to Badger Beer Hour. Ryan Koga, thanks for joining us, the man of the hour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you for inviting me back on.
Yeah, so maybe not obviously, hopefully not obviously. We are recording this in this kind of inception moment where you currently are at the launch party, the relaunch party at your brewery for Ale Asylum. And we are talking about that. I don't know. Anyway, welcome to Badger Beer Hour. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pretty big week for you guys. How has the reception to this big news been?
Very positive, overwhelmingly positive, which it's been fantastic from that. I'm really blown away. I mean, that was the bet, right? That we would, it would be everyone else or enough people would think it was a good enough idea, the same way that we thought it was a good idea.
Yeah,
didn't flub and fall flat on its face in the first minute.
Right? Yeah,
that would have sucked.
You've met that far.
Yeah, wired the money, and then the next announced it the next day, and
everybody's like, "Oh, why?
Yeah.
Why?" Okay, so what was it? You mentioned like it seems like a good idea. So what was it about this that kind of made? I mean, I think it's fairly obvious to people who follow, who know their way around the Madison beer scene or the Wisconsin beer scene even, but kind of talk about why you made this jump and how it kind of came to be, I guess, but mostly why first, I guess.
Why is good?
Yeah.
Well, that's the first question we had to answer as I stretch back and do the.
Oh, look at that! That's cool.
We had some fresh shirts printed up, so.
Nice.
I got to hand Dean and Otto the first Ale Asylum shirts they didn't pay for first, like
nice.
Here you go. The first and foremost, it was a good business decision. There's blood in the streets with craft brewing. And it's, Ale Asylum experienced a part of that. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. I mean, this whole thing happened. As I kept saying, now it's be the third time I've probably repeated this, but first time to you, we're not sitting here doing like a big touchdown dance, that this is the conditions under which this happened, right? It's like here we are, here, this is what the world is. And this was an option in front of us and it made good business sense. And Ale Asylum as a brand, as a portfolio, is just something that shouldn't die. It's an iconic Madison thing. We hope to be considered in the same type of vein with like the Madison craft beer scene. We've just finished 10 years, celebrated 10 years. So hopefully that's a milestone that puts us in the book with that. But, we've felt the same economic pressure everyone else has too. Costs are through the roof. Cans used to be under 8 cents a piece, and now they're 16 cents plus a piece, depending. And that's like a 12-ounce can or like a 16-ounce can. Things are just going crazy. And when we first launched, there was not even 2,000 breweries in the U.S., and now there's over 9,000. So it's grown into the competition. It's grown into more than just a good idea and fun and a good place to be, but it's real competition and there's real market forces being felt now on all sides. So for ourselves, we have the capacity to make maybe 15, 16,000 barrels of beer, just pure beer in our fermenters. That's what our fermenter farm will tolerate and our packaging line and such. And then, but we still have the packaging line still has the capacity for a few thousand more barrels. So this year we already knew, like last year, we probably weren't going to get more than maybe 10,000 barrels of our own stuff going. But we definitely needed quite a bit more to make, to still be a business, to still be viable, to be solvent. So We started looking toward some contract customers, one of which last year we acquired, Zach and I acquired Wisco Pop with Sparkle. So we thought we'd do some non-alcoholic stuff there. And we'll probably get into the like legal THC drinks as well in that realm. But the whole Ale Asylum part as a portfolio, as the IP, was the ability to basically create or, be our own contract client in that sense, where it's great. It's actually been really fun doing contract brewing, get to meet fellow area brewers and see what their passions are, learn their methods and try to bring it home for them. But you never know if they're going to commit to batches, if they're on the schedule, off the schedule, if it's one and done. You hope you set a good pattern, but you never quite know. And this was a chance, like Wisco Pop, to basically buy some business for ourselves. And so it made business sense, but it's just such a beautiful, like Madison type of story, I think, in the end. And I mean, a good Wisconsin type story in the end too. It's, Midwest nice type of thing, but, just as like neighbors in Madison and then all the different connections of, that we started, that we're in Ale Asylum's original place, right? Like we still have, of all the tanks and things that we've changed and equipment we've swapped out over the years, we still have the original brew house. So like the original first batch of Hopalicious was brewed on the same brew house we brewed our first batch of Hopalicious.
Yeah.
And we also have a couple of their team members that last summer when Ale Asylum did have to close its doors and make its last batch, we were very fortunate to have a couple of those team members join our team as well. And,
nice.
They've been awesome to have, awesome to work with. And so you have the people who were brewing it and they're brewing it again. And then we get to leverage some of our abilities, the things that we've done for marketing or whatever else. And we're not here to like put our own spin on everything, like we're here to like shepherd and respect and bring forward what was, and it wasn't really down for the count. It was almost out. It's like a Rocky movie, right? It's like, it got to like the 9, almost a 10 count. Now it's back on its feet,
Okay. So let me jump into exactly what kind of some of the nuts and bolts of what happened here. So,
sure.
I think, this is, so you alluded to this, that this is not Karben4 buying Ale Asylum. This is you and your brother Zach buying the Ale Asylum IP and contract brewing it at Karben4, right? Do I have that?
Correct. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It's our personal debt that's
Okay.
taking it out and buying the business for it. So it just leaves things to be a bit more nimble,
Okay.
and less heavy. Yeah.
Is there anything to, like, does that represent anything as far as like Karben4 not wanting to do that, or okay? And then I guess the other part of it is was it all of the IP? So what exactly is included in what exactly did you guys buy?
That's a good question. Yeah. That's the one that kind of gets muddied, or it doesn't translate as well unless you're doing a discussion, an interview like this. It is all the intellectual property. So all the brands, trademarks, recipes, website, marketing, all of that kind of an intellectual property is what we purchased. So it wasn't any hard assets apart from tap handles or festival banners, maybe if we can find them, if they're still out there. We might get a few of those things, but everything else, it's like intellectual. It's like soft assets in that sense of, we created a Dropbox and Otto, and we've been filling it with, like all the imagery and even like, just today, for instance, I think Otto is like right in the middle of doing like a refresh on the design for the Hopalicious can. And so we're kind of picking up where he left off on that, even trying to get like another set of things done. But so recipe, trademarks, brands, basically. So we were able then to brew any brand that Ale Asylum had made. We now own and control that.
Okay, so that's an interesting point or that's an interesting detail, I guess, that there was a change in that brand. I mean, which is like, you know, I mean, like there's a reason you're starting with Hopalicious, right? I mean, like that's so that's the one that a lot of people like have looked for, and I think a lot of people really miss. But I guess like the question of like changing that, or your ability to change that and refresh the brand or whatever, is like, there's got, because one of the things that you're buying is into that history and that brand presence and awareness. So there's got to be a balance there between like, well, we're not going to just like start changing everything because we want people to understand this is the same thing that they loved for so many years. And I don't know. How does that kind of,
and then
how do you think about
and then there's a but in there too.
Yes.
Yes. So I've told this analogy a couple times too, and I don't know how to do it any better. It's kind of a morbid analogy, but it feels like as if I was the guardian of some children, and the parents got into a bad car wreck and died, you know, or were disabled or whatever, and so they're like, I have to raise them like my children now. And so as those children, the brands, you know, as they come to life and grow and still mature, like I'll always think about, you know, what would the parents have wanted for this thing. But there are going to be times where, as the world turns and moves on, that we'll have to make decisions that we feel are in the best interest of like what's the reality right now, you know. But the good news is, you know, that Otto and Dean, especially in this sense, when it comes to recipes, you know, that we have the ability to just call him and talk to him and say, hey, I got a question here. You know, why'd you do that? Or what if you think if we did this or we did that? So in fact, one thing that we're working through in that sense, even with Hopalicious, we also have Joe Waltz as our quality director right now too, and that guy is beyond brilliant.
Oh, he was one of the folks who came over to your
he had left Ale Asylum at one point, and he went to the West Coast to go work for Narrows Brewing. He got a head brewing job there, and then he actually came back to Ale Asylum and was there for a couple more years, and then he went to Octopi for maybe 2 years. And I'd been talking on and off to Joe, you know, for a long time, never trying to like poach and get in there, but we just had, you know, over time, hey, you want to grab a beer, whatever else, and how are things going? And it was always, when I find certain people, I'm just like, hey man, I'm never going to dislodge you from where you're at and where you're happy, but I just want to let you know, if you ever run into a situation where you wonder or you lose a job or something happens, like I would love the opportunity to work with you. And I've had several team members come through the brewery under those circumstances. And Joe, at one point in time in Octopi, reached out and he said, I'm not sure about this or that, but, you know, and we were very clear at that time too, that I didn't want him coming on board if it wasn't under like the right work. What am I trying to say here? Like a job, like what his role was, you know? So for him, he really, really, really wants to do like research and development type stuff. And I said, okay, you can own our whole R&D program, the whole power, it's all yours, you know, but I need you to also do this quality management and kind of set the whole brewery straight, but in whatever time else you want to carve out, go for it. So, anyway, one thing,
just jumping in here, Joe's previous role at Ale Asylum was quality. He was the head of quality, right? Is that
yeah,
correct?
he had been brewing there, and then he became, I think when he came back, he pretty much was like doing quality control and like production manager and stuff like that. He's doing a lot of scheduling.
So I guess to those who don't know who Joe is, he's a pretty high up in the hierarchy there.
Yeah, WALTS. Look him up. He if he's not already being talked as this, I'm going to pump him up as it is. Not just because he's currently on my team, but he deserves it. I think he's one of the premier minds in brewing, if in the region, if not like the country, for craft beer. He's beyond brilliant. And he just really loves beer, you know, like he just lives and breathes it in him. He hates when I keep saying it, but he started off his career as like an aerospace engineer, like a rocket scientist. But he'll say that I barely got into it. And I'm like, I know, dude, but you passed all the tests to kind of get your foot in the door, which makes you really brilliant. So his approach is methodical, and he's funny. He's incredibly humble. He's has a very large role in the region, our region's Master Brewers Association. He's published. He's just awesome, man. I love the dude. So one thing we're dealing with even with Hopalicious right now is there's a bigger thing, kind of not attacking craft beer, but you're seeing it like with gushers and cans that are experiencing hop creep. Especially beers that have like C hops, like Cascade Centennial, perhaps Columbus, but other things too. It turns out that there's enzymes that are in the certain hop strains that when you dry hop with them, they will go and they will come loose from the hop material. They will start breaking down the dextrins and convert them into fermentable sugar. And so the yeast that's left in there will start fermenting. So it'll either, if you catch it at the right time in your fermenter, your gravity will continue to creep down. But if you didn't know it was happening and you package that beer, you might package it at perfect carbonation. But if there's any little bit of yeast in there, those enzymes are making free sugar, and you're going to overcarbonate your can, and it's going to turn into a gusher. Okay. So we actually experienced that a little bit with Hawk Jones until we figured out exactly what it was. And there's a lot of Centennial in there. So even with these first rounds of Hopalicious, there's quite a bit of dextrin malt.
Right? That's a Cascade beer?
That's correct. Cascade? Yep. Yeah. Hopalicious is all Cascade, 100% Cascade. And as a caveat here, another little rabbit hole, but more modern hop pelletizing techniques are focused on pelletizing the hops at lower temperatures. There's like a Play-Doh press type of thing that turns like the hops into pellets. And when you are doing that, it creates a lot of pressure and it can create a lot of heat. And then you can actually start to break down the enzymes, but it also starts to break down hop oils and like really quality things you want from your hops. So when you start doing that as a cool press, you preserve those enzymes, and then which means better smelling hops and quality, but you also then like increase your ability for hop creep. So like with Hopalicious being a lot of Cascade and all Cascade, we were experiencing hop creep, but we found it in the fermenter first. So we let it kind of come down. So now we kind of have to rethink a little bit like, oh, hang on a second. This is the intent of the recipe, but now we're using these new hops or, newer whatever. So we got to figure out how to hit the old idea with new problem, new ingredients or new.
Interesting. Okay.
So those are the types of things that we'll have to adjust fire as necessary.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that let's stay on the beer for a second before we turn back to the business stuff. I'm sure you've been hearing like just name after name after name after name of Ale Asylum beer that everybody, when I'm sure the second thing, first everybody's like, oh, that's so cool, way to go. And the second thing is like, you got to bring back this beer. So I'm going to give you my three. I'm just going to give you three. Bedlam, Ambergeddon, and Birrio. Birrio is a sleepy dark horse in the Ale Asylum portfolio, I believe. It's kind of a new fellow there, but that's a nice little pale ale. I'm sure you hear a lot of like Madtown Nut Brown, Unshadowed. Like what's the plan for all this? Like, how do you have any sense yet of like how to sort all that out and like how are you thinking about like, okay, now what?
That's a great question. That is kind of the question for us right now.
Yeah.
That's in fact, I don't often go through like the social media comments and posts and stuff like we were just talking about before we started recording. I got four little kids still, so I spend most of my time reading stories to them, not reading social media stuff. But I definitely have read all the stuff right now, and a lot of it was just for that. Was trying to understand which order. Now when you asked us, like before all this actually like came true, we thought, hang on a second, we just got a cartoning machine. And we have a variety pack in-feed table for it. What if we made a greatest hits like Hopalicious, Ambergeddon, Nut Brown, and Unshadowed? That'd make a pretty good variety pack, for a 12-pack. But then we started thinking, oh, well, is that the combo? Like, what is it? So we're actually like hoping and looking forward to getting a lot of feedback from everyone out there. Now, we've been thinking about this for a couple months, and there's a pretty well-populated list of beers that are that could definitely work.
Yeah.
So it makes our job hard. They're like good and bad there because you want to bring them out in the right order and do the right thing. But we're actually looking for a lot of input from everybody to kind of figure out that thing. I know we've kind of committed internally to bringing back to doing Octillion for an Oktoberfest. So like we've had Oktober Ale in our history, and we've never really brewed a true blue like Oktoberfest for our own purposes for Karben4. This year we're making a couple for some contract stuff, but then we'll be making Octillion. So I think we'll make space for that for sure. The other ones we're still trying to figure that out, seeing how people will respond. And the first point of order is to just get Hopalicious back on the shelf and get that heartbeat going again.
Yeah.
And get that stabilized. We're not going to wait super long till it's 100% stabilized, but it seems like breweries nowadays, if you're not known for new things every week or every other week, if you're not known for the iterations, then you really just get like a chance to bring out one big beer, maybe two, as like a mainstay. And for us, that's been Fantasy Factory, and now in our calendar for this year, we're bringing back a lot of fan favorite ones and also like brewery favorite ones with Lady Luck and Block Party and Idiot Farm and things like that. So for Ale Asylum, it's definitely Hopalicious was their overarching, volume carrier. And then it's like, well, let's pick some really good, awesome beers to kind of fill in so that there's only so much room on the shelf now. So we want to fill that space with hard hitters that are fan favorites. And we're really looking for a lot of feedback to help us figure that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned in that answer, which was mainly about Ale Asylum, you mentioned some of your own beers. So yeah, and this has got to be, well, let me jump back for a second. Is there anything before I would definitely want to ask that question, but is there anything that you're excited about in that portfolio to like take on as like the brewer in you? Like you are excited to make this beer because of a recipe or, a technique or something that it uses or anything like that?
I would say, if there's a couple of names that populate in my mind that I don't know if it'll get to what I want to, Satisfaction Jackson, Sticky McDougal,
Scotch
and Bedlam, because Bedlam was the first Belgian beer I ever liked. I'm not as much of a Belgian beer fan.
Okay.
There's like something about that peppery phenolic character in the yeast that actually tastes. It's like the same taste I get in my mouth when I have migraines. And I used to have like a really bad problem with migraines very often. And so there's something about it. I start drinking it and I'm like, oh, I got a migraine. I'm like, no, it's just the beer. So Bedlam just hit on all cylinders. I had that when I thought, oh my goodness, this opened the door for me to a whole class of beers I couldn't appreciate before. So I definitely want to do some of those. I don't know if we'll get to Sticky, but like during when I got married, we were living in Montana at the time, and I came back to Madison for my bachelor party. We went and rented a cabin out in the Dells, and it was Hopalicious and Sticky McDougal and a lot of whiskey too party. But it always holds a special place in my heart. And Satisfaction Jackson is like very centennial driven. And, kind of a lot like Two Hearted. And I know Zach and I used to geek out about that years and years ago before we ever even talked about opening up our own brewery. So
nice.
Those stick out for me. And then the other night when we were having beers with Dean and Otto, like when we first just closed the deal, like last Wednesday night, there was a lot of talk about some stouts and porters that they had done in the past, like one from Angelic way back when that was bottle conditioned, and some other darker beers. And I'm really like a dark beer fan myself. So I love dark, rich stouts and porters. So I would love to bring back a few of those.
Nice. Okay, back to the question that I was about to ask. So, obviously you're now kind of helming two different breweries under one roof. There is clear competition between some of these brands with some of the beers that you do. I mean, obviously, like there's competition. Like, I mean, Ale Asylum has all the beers, so but particularly, with the Madison home team, there's potential, overlap in consumer there. And I think kind of like I would say like the overall kind of style of hop forward but malt interesting. I think that there's some shared there's some similarities between K4 and Ale Asylum's portfolios. So how are you going to, again, I know this is, we're very early in this, but how do you, when you're thinking about managing that and not stepping on your own feet, I'll say, how do you think about that?
I think there's definitely more inevitably than definitely, but inevitably there's going to be some cannibalizing of our volume, because there's folks that might have hopefully migrated to some Karben4 beers when they ran out of Ale Asylum stuff on the shelf. In terms of the style, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'd have actually never seen any of their recipes until just a little bit ago. And that was one thing that really hit me, was how similar our brewing styles were. Like they were using pale ale based malt instead of just like standard 2-row, which is like, we've used Golden Promise since the beginning. I think we'll have to let Golden Promise go this year because of like UK energy prices and all kinds of stuff. Really? It's just getting out of control.
Okay.
Across the whole board. It's just like, we're going to have to change tack a little bit. But we've used like a lot of UK malts, and but same thing, like raw pale ale as a base malt is like very, very close to Simpson's Golden Promise. It's kind of, Zach and I, my brother, were talking about that today. I was like, between the two malts, they're really good. One's grown in northern Scotland and malted in northern England and then shipped across the pond. One's grown in the Midwest and malted in Minnesota. And they're both very delicious species of barley. It kind of made me think, my first analogy was, it's kind of like a Ponderosa steak and like a chop house steak. I'm like, I used to work at Ponderosa, and there were some good steaks here and there. If you got a good cut, you could get it. But I thought, no, it's not quite that. The difference between the two is more like, it's always a chop house steak, but it's like butter on it versus herb butter. It's like one just is like, oh my goodness, that's over the top. You're right. So their silos over at Ale Asylum are filled with like raw pale ale. They were using UK dextrin malt like we were, and they're using Simpson's malts for their caramel malts and such. So when I looked at it all, I was like, well, wow, we're actually like very similar the way we brew, and I never knew that.
Okay.
Never really poked about it, and never asked about it. And so that's really cool. In the marketplace, there is definitely going to be some cannibalizing. Our big hope is that when it comes time to have tap handles at a bar, a lot of beer buyers at bars, what they'll do to kind of keep the peace among the different salespeople and the different distributing houses, they might say, all right, these two handles are for General Beverage, these two are for Wisconsin Distributing, these two are for Frank, so on and so forth, right? So my hope is that they don't see us just as like Hopalicious and Fantasy Factory are just the same K4 brand, and we get one of the two. I hope we get both handles, that would be the hope. But I know it won't always happen. But space on the shelf, I think, in a sense, the real bet here and the hope is that people who are really true blue fans of Ale Asylum, who have been following them since the beginning, who Hopalicious was their way of relaxing on a Friday or Saturday. Like, that's what made that moment special for them. When they wanted to celebrate something, they thought to themselves, hang on a second, this needs one more thing. Hopalicious, like, now it's perfect, right? For those folks who that was an intricate part of their life and the way that they celebrated, I just want to offer them the same experience again and say, hey, man, we got you. Like, this didn't just go away into history. It's here. It's really cared for. I think we're like best place to bring it back. So I hope that the people there who maybe went away from ales, didn't have ales anymore, and they went to somewhere totally else, not Karben4, we can recapture them as a business statement, for our purposes, that they buy the Ale Asylum stuff. In terms of the broader picture, if I zoom out now a little bit to more like
Yeah.
20,000 feet, one of the things with like contract brewing, not only we had to like fill up our pipeline and our brewery to like monetize the equipment and stay busy and be solvent as a brewery, but you started thinking to yourself, you know, like the younger version of me would have had a chip on his shoulder that was like, well, you know, I wouldn't probably want to admit it, but I'd be like, I want to win, you know, but I want to win on merit. And there's a lot of dirty games that get played that, you know, whatever, but like, I want it to go and we want to make our own stuff. And I've always liked to help people, but now as a business case, it's more like, well, guess what? There's a lot of competition and, I want to stack up W's big and small. So when we contract brew it for someone else, number one, we put our heart and soul into it. My whole team is like very passionate about quality and kicking ass every day. They're like the best team. So when we contract brew, you know, we make a small margin on it. And those are little W's on the shelf, right? And then when they buy our brands, then we get a little bit bigger W's. So as long as we're stacking up W's and not goose eggs, or complete losses, right? That's how we're going to try to stay the course just as a business. So, I mean, everybody started off craft beer early on because we're all romantic about beer and craft, and we're still there. But the other half of it is that the reality is we're light manufacturing, and manufacturing, there's inputs and outputs and there's a business to be run. So, you know, you got to find a way.
When you mentioned earlier the kind of some numbers that to me kind of set the frame for your expectations for this play for the business, and you said something like 15 to 16,000 is the capacity of K4 right now.
Yeah, I think overall we have the capacity to basically like package 80 to 90 barrels a day on a normal shift on our packaging line, which is like 2 tanks for us and the way that our brewery set up. So if we do that 5 days a week, that means we will have canned about 18,000 barrels, maybe 19,000 barrels. And then if you add kegs in, it's even more. So our fermentation farm can really only tolerate or support up to about 15,000 barrels, you know, plus or minus 1,000 barrels in there, depending upon the mix of lager, ale, lutra, different things, right? Sure. So the other 5,000 barrels, that's what we're filling with like sodas, NA stuff, sparkling water, CBD water, THC stuff, things that move quicker.
Okay.
So
just doing the math, and you said you were at about 10,000 barrels of your own stuff this year.
Yeah, I think
last year.
Right before COVID, I think we got like just below 12, somewhere in there, 11, 12. This last year, we were just below 10. So, you know, we're kind of seeing a little bit of a decline in there, but overall, we've held the line pretty well, you know, compared
with those other customers. Okay. So, I mean, is that kind of how you see this? Is like Ale Asylum might be a 4,000 or 5,000 barrel a year brand?
God, I hope so.
I mean, I guess that's the question. Like, I mean, and like, you know, looking back at Ale Asylum, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know they were like in the 20s for a couple of years there. And, you know, I guess I think like I you know, see some of this with Eagle Park and Milwaukee Brewing too. Like there's a corollary there that there's, I mean, it's a very similar situation. And you know, I think if the expectations are kind of like low, I don't want to say low, like I don't want to say it's easy, but like there's this built-in market for this stuff that never went away during whether it was for Milwaukee Brewing, the decline in quality or, you know, whatever. But both of those, the beer, these brands didn't die because the brands were, nobody wanted them. These brands died because they overextended, and then the financial pressures to meet this new level never happened. And you guys are in a good spot because you've stayed where you were and you know, where you've been for 10 years and have built that up inside. And now I don't know what the true number of like what the like kind of passive market number of Ale Asylum beer per year might be, but I bet you it's a lot more than I mean, and not to say that they weren't, that their teams weren't out there working hard, and that your teams won't all be working hard to sell it and move it, but it seems, I don't know, like depending on the investment, it seems like it could be a pretty good thing. I don't know what that, that's not a question, but
no, it's parroting a lot of our internal conversation over the last couple months here. That was a big question. I mean, we sat down with a lot of different people, including our main distributor, General Beverage, who is also the distributor for the Ale Asylum brands. That was another reason why why this made sense, was because it's going right back to where the people that sold it, everybody knew what to do already, right? We already knew the play. Yeah. We already knew how to call the play. We knew how to run the ball. Let's get this done, But we definitely had a lot of long conversations about, hey, how much is it going to be? Is it 1,000 barrels, 2,000? They peaked at like 22.5, somewhere in there. And then, kind of slowly stepped back down to, 19, 18 in there. And then in 2021, I think there were somewhere in the 9,000s, 9,500, somewhere around there. And then 22, when they had shut down, not as much because they stopped brewing basically in April, May, somewhere around in there, June. The hope is, that we're at least 1,000 or 1,500 barrels, but the real success would be like if it was like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 barrels, because it would be just a big chunk of business for us that's steady. And when your house isn't on fire, then you get to focus on, having fun and, doing happy fun time, having good family time, right? Because your house isn't on fire, you're not dying. So that's kind of the hope there, is that you get enough of a foundation, and then you can actually tolerate a few passion projects, for beers that might break even at best. But they were like really fun. They're really great to put out there. They're just really expensive to make, and you just really want to do it, but you can't. Every beer you do can't be that, or you're just a really expensive hobby. You're not a business, because you still have to be a business, and you got to grow out of it. You got to grow up out and exit that startup phase, which means definitely standing on your own 2 feet. So there's definitely a corollary between what we just accomplished and Milwaukee Brewing with Eagle Park. So yeah, you have like a nice steady brand beer that you respect. You feel like, hang on, we know how to respect this. We're not going to screw it up. It's not just some greasy play. It's like, no, this would really help us. This would help them. They want to exit. This is this, like everybody wins. And especially in this case, for our case, since it's being brewed where it started, with some of the people that always brewed it, it just feels like a natural fit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap. I've taken up quite a bit of your Tuesday night, and I know you've got a big relaunch party to get ready for. So
right.
I appreciate you coming
kids,
on, Ryan.
No, that's this hand right here. I see all my kids' toys in the background in the basement here. So
I can see that. I respect.
I'm in my wife's office. So.
Any closing words on this?
Please, a big thing for people out there would be, help us write the calendar for what brings back. I only want to brew what people are going to buy, like I only want to brew Bedlam, Triple Nova, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is like the play here. We know that people don't look to K4 to do massive iteration. We tried that last year, 24 new beers. Some of the times it's like we couldn't even sell 100 cases in Madison. You're like, this is a really great beer. I have no idea what's happening. And some people don't they just don't view you as that. And so, as Bill Rogers told me way back when we first opened K4 in our first month, he was like, like you can choose what you want to brew today, but it's your customers that tell you what you get to brew tomorrow. So and at first I was like, how dare you? I'm creative. I can do it. And, now I'm like, we've had a time to be just like purely creative and whatever else. And I'm going to put the creativity into running a good business. We got a lot of people on our team and families that depend on us, and customers that trust in us to be a part of their weekends to help them celebrate their special moments. And we always want to respect, their life force that they put out there in the avatar of money to invest in what we're putting out there. So we're just hoping to do the same for Ale Asylum, and really I don't want to throw a dart at the dartboard for what's going to get brewed next. It's the loudest. I want the loudest voices to come out about what you want, and then we just that's what we're going to focus on.
What's the best way for people to do that? How should they yell at you? That's
a really great question. Social media, like especially Facebook, responding to some things. We'll probably put out some surveys pretty soon. Some posts that say, "What do you want us to do next?" and we will read them. Or just it wouldn't be unsolicited now because I'm soliciting it, but info@karben4.com. You can always say, hey, my suggestion for Ale Asylum, and we'll just tally the votes. And if people are voting for it, they'll buy it, and we'll only want to brew what they're gonna buy. This is like, it's kind of maybe it's like kind of cool in a way. It's kind of beautiful in the sense that like early on in craft beer, us brewers were just like brewing whatever and trying to explore. And there's been a lot of places that have been explored. Every corner had a flashlight shown into. And now is the time that it's like, okay, I kind of got that out of my system, a little bit. Not that we're not trying to invent new things and have fun projects. We still are, definitely. But now it's a great chance to say, what do you want us to make? And in this sense, we have a portfolio of K4 beers that have been fan favorites. And we have a whole new portfolio, or previous portfolio of Ale Asylum stuff. So there's a large amount of greatest hits here, to select. So put your coin in the jukebox and let us know, which record you want us to spin for you, and we're happy to do so.
Play the hits, baby. All right,
play the hits.
All right, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck with all this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Play the hits, baby. It's a great way to end an interview, Chris.
Yeah, Landon, you want to know what hell is like? Listening to yourself talk for 40 minutes. That's about it. No.
That's why I don't do the interviews. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right,
it was a good interview. A lot of
it was a fantastic interview. You did a wonderful job. Ryan is a great interview.
That's not what I meant. I meant him. Yeah.
You really didn't have to talk that much. Ryan pretty much just took it away from you.
Yeah, he's a good, as we said in the debrief after the interview. Greg and Ryan and I kind of shot the shit for a little while, and I is what we call a good quote in the journalism business. So yeah, he's a good guest for this.
Yeah. All right, let's just dive right into the news. We've got quite a bit of it, even outside of Karben4 and Ale Asylum.
Oh yeah. Let's start with some of. So I thought that Greg had been to this brewery last year, maybe, but apparently time is a flat circle, and this was 2 years ago. Yeah. But loyal viewers of the Badger Beer Hour may remember that visited Dusterbeck's Brewing a couple summers ago, showed us around their kind of farmhouse, really, really nice farmhouse brewery. And just a little primer on Dusterbeck's. They opened in late 2019 out in the country, kind of between Elkhorn and Delavan, down near Lake Geneva. And I talked to their sales guy, I guess, Dan, who's okay. So this is not part of the new funny. Dan, his name is Dan Dusterbeck, And so I'm like, okay, well, he's like the guy. And he's like, no, I'm like a sixth cousin of the family that started the farm 150 years ago or whatever. And they just hired me. And I'm like, holy cow, tell me you're from a small Wisconsin town without telling me you're from a small Wisconsin town. So
right.
Anyway, Dan Dusterbeck kind of walked me through the brewery's kind of arc over the last couple of years. They weathered the pandemic pretty well. And they've been selling beer to like bars, restaurants, and grocery stores. They've got an in-house canning line, mostly, around that Lake Geneva area, as well as the Hy-Vee and Woodman's in Janesville. So they've got a toehold in some bigger markets. Well, back in this January, they finished an expansion. This is the second one they've done already. They built a new building out back that expands their capacity about sevenfold. So they're kind of getting ready to go big. They'll be able to, keep the summer, they've got, I think 18 tap lines or something like that, filled with their own beer during summer, which is the high season with all the visitors to that area. He said they get a lot of folks from Illinois coming in, and they're very gracious about that, as everybody is in the Lake Geneva area. But now they're looking to grow into the state's two biggest markets. So they're going to start calling on accounts in Madison and Milwaukee. And Dan thinks that they'll have beer in those cities possibly by like late summer, maybe August or something. So something to watch for, new beer in I imagine where a big part of our audience lives.
Yeah. That's good stuff. I'd love to get down to Dusterbeck's. That it looked from the video that Greg shot.
Yeah,
looks like a great place.
I think it's a highly Instagrammable brewery.
Yeah, that's what all the kids are doing, or not. I don't know. I can't keep up.
They're Snapchatting it now.
Yeah, TikToking, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta hurry up because we've got a bunch of events we got to get to. So.
Yeah, and we did take 42 minutes on the interview. Thanks, Ryan, for that, being gracious with this time, or for stretching it out to 42 minutes here. Yeah, we can do a little speed round here. Okay, first, so last month we talked about Lakefront going all in on cans, and that conversion is now complete. So Lakefront, that's obviously Milwaukee. Is cranking out fresh beer from its in-house canning line, and everything's running smoothly, I'm told. This is a pretty big deal because they had basically stopped production while they pulled that bottling line out and put the canning line in. They had, of course, we've seen Lakefront cans. Remember that those were being sent up to Stevens Point for canning. So now they will be doing all that in-house, and that should really increase efficiency and all that stuff. So that's one. We've got a cool product thing that I kind of want to mention because I just think this is so fun. This is from Anapi up in Swamico. They started in Algoma, but I think Swamico is their main brewery now. They're doing a really fun thing for April Fool's Day, and that is that they're calling it 6-pack roulette. So check this out. It's a 6-pack of their Hail Mary Helles, all with the same labels. Well, of course it's the same labels because it's the same beer, right? No, wrong.
Right.
Wrong, Landon. One beer is a lemon sour.
Ooh.
So, I mean, I would imagine you might be able to smell that, but it probably looks pretty similar. Same color. And then I imagine like sitting around the table with the boys, and you kind of pour your easy drinking lager, slug it out of the can. And you're like, wow. So, I don't know. I thought that was fun, and
that's cool.
Anything like that. I tweeted this out, and somebody mentioned like, boy, I wonder what the TTB would think of that. Like mislabeling a beer, and maybe. I mean, TTB only handles things that go across state lines. What they approve labels for. I don't know if they could get in any trouble. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, you're clearly saying what it is when you sell it. So
right.
It's not like they're sneaking sours into like random 6-packs. Okay, we gotta move. I got a couple more follow-ups on Milwaukee stories that we've reported in recent months. We mentioned that our friends at Gathering Place Brewing here in Milwaukee were looking for a new head brewer. Corey Blodgett left, and Well, they've got their guy, and it's somebody that we've talked about on this show. His name is, oh, damn it. Seen this written and read it so many times, and I don't know how to say it. It's Matt. I think it's Matt Sizz. His last name is Cizz. And he's been a brewer at Third Space for a couple of years. And he's been on this. He hasn't been on this show, but I think we've mentioned him on this show because he was the guy behind the 1 and 4 collaboration beer last fall that was drawing attention and raising money to prevent domestic violence. That was the 1 and 4 beer that I think that's the model where a bunch of brewery, the recipe and the label and stuff is sent out, is made available to any brewery that wants to make one. So there, I think at least a dozen breweries around the state that did one. So good stuff for them, and that'll be interesting. Space is a little bit different kind of brewery than Gathering Place in terms of the kind of beers that they focus on. So we'll see. Gathering Place has been a pretty traditional lager-oriented brewery. Not that Third Space has actually had rolled out a line of lagers this year. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Haven't talked to Joe or Matt about this going forward, so just kind of speculating, but cool stuff. And then over in kind of by way of Verona, I guess, we've got an update on the Lake Louis Dockhouse at Wisconsin Brewing Company Stadium, home of the Lake Country Dockhounds. Gotta take a breath after that. Barry, my colleague, my beer reporting colleague, Barry Adams, and I were commiserating about how unwieldy this whole story is with all the names and affiliations and all this stuff. But so Lake Louis Dockhouse is, of course, the Lake Louis brand that is owned now by Wisconsin Brewing Company. Wisconsin Brewing Company is the title sponsor of this stadium in Oconomowoc that is the home of the Lake Country Dockhounds. Okay. Anyway, the news here is that, we reported that this 5-barrel pilot brewery and tap room inside the ballpark would be open to the public back in December that they're opening, or that they started up. But there's a new plan, and I don't think this has been reported very widely, but this brewery is going to be open on game days, but it's primarily going to be an event venue going forward. Paul Verdew, who we had on the show, is excited about this plan. That he's got a food vendor in there that he really likes, and he thinks that they'll be able to keep up production pace just for the ball games and these special events that they're happening. They said they will have some public events like maybe a night here or there, or like a watch party for baseball stuff or something like that. But primarily it's going to be just open to the public on game days. So and the real kind of news here that they sent out was that they're having their grand opening on April 14th. That is a public event, so folks can go and check out a bunch of different beers and stuff. And they will not have this interesting beer that they're working on for that event, but they're getting this one ready for the Dockhounds opening day on May 12th. And that is a lager aged with baseball bats, the wood from baseball bats. Yes, but it's going to be like raw, it's like clean wood. And it's maple. Yeah. So, I mean, it's maple. It's not like, ash, I guess, is the other wood that common with bats. But so they're going to have that. There's a company called Dingbats, something in Verona, where Wisconsin Brewing and Lake Louis are based, that makes specialty bats. And so they got a bunch of like ends and knobs and kind of like the leavings from making these bats, cut out stuff, and then they I guess they grooved it and kind of made it into like spirals that you would have in a beer. Paul mentioned Budweiser is aged with beechwood, and that's not really a flavor thing. It's more for think it's more for like the yeast. I guess the yeast helps, like, clings to the things, and it kind of has more robust fermentation or something like that. I don't know. But he didn't think that there'd be a whole lot of like flavor imparted by the wood. But I don't know, baseball bat lager. What the hell? That sounds cool.
Hey, as long as it tastes better than Budweiser.
It will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will.
Should.
So that is the Badger Beer Hour news for March.
All right. All right, we've got events, and actually quite a few of them are coming up this weekend. So if you didn't know about these and you've got a free weekend, now's the time. So this Saturday, March 25th, Mobcraft is having its Sour Fest. And as you can imagine, if you've ever had Mobcraft beer, some of that's going to be some pretty crazy stuff. So lots of wild and sour beers on tap. And then they're going to have a Wisconsin wild and sour sampling session, which highlights sour beers from breweries across Wisconsin. So you have to buy tickets for that. The beers in the tap room, that's free to attend. Doors open at noon. And then they are also releasing their sour golden ale for this year.
Mobcraft gets, I mean, I talk about it a lot, how they lean into the weird stuff, but their sour program is pretty legit. They've got a nice Solera type sour in Low Funk that's won a couple GABF awards, both golds, maybe, like might be two-time gold, and their Existence series and the gold. I mean, it's pretty. It's it's not like all just kettle sours and stuff. They're doing some pretty interesting wild fermentation and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Also coming up, same part of the state, also this Saturday. So maybe drink a little bit of sours or start here first. So Black Husky is doing Susan G. Komen's Big Wig campaign. They're raising money for the Susan G. Komen campaign, which goes a lot towards cancer research, breast cancer research, those kinds of things. So it all goes to that. Support research to find the cures for breast cancer. Starting at 4:30, they'll be hosting a full-on fashion show, complete with a pink carpet, disco balls, fog machine, walkout music, and of course, local bigwigs with pink wigs and matching outfits.
This sounds like a drag show, Landon.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
but
boy.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. But like local business and nonprofit leaders, including Black Husky's own Tim Eichinger, who he's ripped, man. If he's gonna be in a wig, we're all gonna feel conflicted, I think.
Yeah. That's that's a great place to go. If you're not in the Milwaukee area, this Saturday also starting at noon, and you're gonna have to put your big drinking pants on because this is gonna be a big one. Giant Jones is having their Barley Wine Fest from noon to 10. It features 9 Giant Jones barley wines, 9 of them, plus barley wines from guest breweries as well. And if you don't like barley wine, don't go there because that's all they're going to have all day. I have a barley wine aging in my fridge right now. I was going to pull it out tonight, but I decided not to. So good stuff. Uh-oh, did Chris freeze? Oh, well, we'll move on. Next event. We'll see what he thinks about it when he gets back. I don't know if you've thought about Oktoberfest, and you probably haven't because there's still snow on the ground. We haven't even gotten really to what I would consider spring temperatures yet. But regardless of that, the Bavarian Beer House in Glendale is having their halfway to Oktoberfest celebration. I believe that is this weekend. I'll have to look that up again. Regardless, they're having half off liters of Martzen Fest beer from 11 to noon. free keg tapping of fest beer at 4 o'clock, live music with the Alta Kamarden from 4 to 8. And if you are really into eating bratwurst, they're having a meterwurst eating contest, and that starts at 5:30.
Is that a 3-foot long
Yeah,
sausage?
that's a lot of sausage.
Oh, yeah. By the way, that is this Saturday.
That's this Saturday
from
too.
3
Yeah,
3 to 9 p.m. So
yeah. Oh, good stuff.
yeah,
If I were closer, I'd be there.
you got to get your meter wurst in you.
Yeah, get my meterwurst. That's right. Stillmank. We all know Stillmank. They're having their 9th anniversary party on April 1st. Yeah, let's see if I can find more information about this.
That's a nice Green Bay brewery
Yeah.
in the on the east side of Green Bay in my old
I've been
stomping
there.
grounds.
Yeah.
And yeah, good folks there. That's the Wisco Disco is their kind of flagship, or at least it was back when they were distributing in Madison. They were in Madison for a hot bit.
Yeah. They the party's going from noon to 9. They're gonna have food, live music, some bluegrass music, even if you like that stuff. So it doesn't say anything about special beers, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've got some special beers and stuff going on there. And then, believe it or not, on my birthday, April 15th,
Wow.
Bull Falls is they're having their never forgotten Honor Flight 5K run walk and Bachfest, because it's never too late for a Bachfest. Believe it or not,
Nope.
it would probably
Always.
still be cold.
Box forever.
Yeah, right. So they are helping out with the honor flight. If you don't know what an honor flight is, it helps vets go to Washington D.C. to see the war memorials and to just be on a flight with all vets. So proceeds, a portion of the proceeds from this is going to that to help these vets get to see these war memorials in Washington D.C. Of course, there'll be additional opportunities to make donations throughout the afternoon. The last 10 years, they've raised $120,000 for this, so it's a good thing. You don't have to run if you don't want to, but if you like that kind of thing, you can. That begins at noon, and then you get a shirt if you run, which doesn't seem like, I'm not a runner, so that's not really. Anyway,
Not going to get the shirt.
I don't need another shirt. I just buy one and not run. So they've got all the details on their Facebook page about the run. Otherwise, you can just go drink beer and help with their honor flight stuff. Some other stuff that Chris stuck in here: the Dell's rare barrel affair. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah. So just this is all stuff that's like outside of the next month, but
yeah,
the kind of thing that these are the bigger events that are better. I'm not saying I want to say better events, but these are events that all of which that I would kind of like to go to or have been to.
Yeah.
So, but you put them on your calendar now. So.
So the Rare Barrel Affair is in the Wisconsin Dells, April 22nd. That is a benefit for the Wisconsin Brewers Guild.
Always a good cause.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris, you could get a media pass if you want one.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Just sign up for that now. Lager and Friends is coming up in Glendale on May 20th. Everybody loves lager. Lager's life. That sounds like a great thing to go to. I've never been. I've heard great things.
I can vouch for it. I've been to every one of them, and it's a great event every year. Maybe we'll have Joe on ahead of it to talk about what's going on with it this year. That's Joe Ito from Gathering Place.
Yep.
It's at Bavarian Beer House's beer garden, at what they call it, Old Heidelberg Park. And that is like a true,
yes, it's fantastic.
Like
love that
German ass beer garden with all the picnic tables and stuff. But they've got a big pavilion where all the brewers are set up, and it's not overwhelming with too many people. Or
right.
too many breweries. It's the perfect size. It's indoor, outdoor. There's tons of food available, from the little sausage kiosks that they have all around stuff. It's just a great, and lager, I mean,
Yeah.
you get big pours of all this stuff, and it's a really fun day.
Good times. Also coming up, Wisconsin Beer Lovers Festival, which will also be in Glendale. That will be on June 17th. That one does benefit the Brewers Guild of Wisconsin also.
And this is another one that have food pairings. They have restaurants from around the area that are paired intentionally with some of the beers that from I think it's all only state brewers. Yeah. Only state brewers. Yeah. And there's a lot of brewers that come out in the same way that the Great Taste is kind of like a festival for brewers. I think the breweries still kind of they still come to this one because of the Brewers Guild tie. So a lot of times you'll end up with staff on hand to talk about the beers if you want to do that and that sort of thing. So, but the restaurant pairings are great. I remember last year or a couple of years ago they had might have been they didn't have it last year, so this might have been the last one before the pandemic. They had South Shore Brewing up in Ashland. They are known for having their I don't know if it's a separate business or if it's attached, but the whitefish sandwiches at the I don't know if it's at the brewery or the restaurant attached to it or whatever, but they had that. And I think there was like a pairing, like maybe they're German Pilsner or something. Oh man, that fish was so good, and it was so good. It was just perfect with the beer. So that's the kind of thing that you can look forward to. They have dessert stuff, some desserts, but a lot of like a little short rib that goes with like a porter or something. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, so put that on your calendar, June 17th. The last one to put on your calendar, July 15th, Lager Than Life in Beloit. Yeah, you ever been to that one, Chris? Lager Than Life in Beloit?
I think this one might be new. Either new this year or new last year. So, it's a bigger one. It's at the big downtown park in Beloit, which has kind of got it like an up and coming. They did have it last year. So I think last year was the first year.
So they've got 30 breweries committed to come. Some of them are Karben4, Dovetail, G5, 608 Brewing. So if you like those, and then a bunch of other ones, so it's at Rock River at Preservation Park. So they're going to do it rain or shine. Yeah,
it's not downtown, but it is. Beloit has a lively downtown that's kind of becoming a lot more interesting than you would think from Beloit if you haven't been to Beloit recently. Also, South Beloit is in Illinois, and you know what you can do in Illinois, and particularly in South Beloit, Illinois?
What's that?
You can go buy legal weed if that's your thing.
Ooh,
there you go.
Just expensive legal weed, right?
Yeah,
that's
right. Oh, look at this! Someone's chiming in about the Donut Don release.
Donut Don
Adventure.
Yeah,
I wonder who that could be.
April 22nd.
Yeah. So Donut, that's that Venture Brew Company in Milwaukee, on just was it 15 blocks from Beer Baron HQ over here, and Donut Don is Venture's collaboration with Cranky Al's Donut Place. They do it's a coffee cruller imperial stout that is delicious. Ooh. And they've done all kinds of interesting variants in the last couple of years with they had one last year with I think it was orange bitters from I'm blanking. Why am I blanking? Bitter Cube, the local Milwaukee company that makes bitters.
Nice.
Like different flavors of bitters for cocktail mixers and stuff. So super interesting stuff, and they're okay people too.
That's the last of events, but I want to remind anybody just like that. If you've got events, we honestly don't do that great of a job of covering all of the events because, let's be honest, Wisconsin is a big, big state. So, yeah, there it is. Email badgerbeerhour@gmail.com. We'll make sure that we get your event included in next month's events. Let's wrap it up with the last call.
Is Greg not even? He's not even coming on tonight, huh?
No, he's not
just
coming
going to
on.
be the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, he's running the show.
All right.
I've got, so we talked about this last year, and probably even before that. Dave's Brew Farm, who those of us that live in this part of the state, even those that live, that are beer drinkers throughout the state, knew what Dave's Brew Farm was. Just a little bit of a follow up. There isn't an exact date for the new one opening up, so it is now going to be called Botany Brew Farm. Same place. They've done a collaboration beer already of sorts with Arbeiter Brewing in the cities. They brewed a red wine barrel-aged Brett Imperial Plum Pilsner. Say that 5 times fast.
Yes. That's a hell of a first swing there.
Right? He is yeah, Alton is really like embracing everything that is grown on the farm, just kind of like Dave did, living off the land, that kind of a thing. So I think in many ways, it's going to be kind of like Dave's, but I think it's going to be more of a destination. I think the hours are going to be more consistent rather than just posting a day before and saying, hey, I'm going to be open tomorrow for 2 hours, that kind of a thing. It does say it's going to be open in 2023. So I would imagine once the snow clears out, you'll probably start seeing, Greg, absolutely, field trip. We'll take a field trip over there. So stay tuned to hear, and stay tuned. Of course, you can go to Botany Brew Farm's Facebook page and follow them there. I expect great things out of that place when it opens.
Very nice.
That's all I got.
All right. I'll mention a couple things. It's beer bracket season, and there's been a change in the beer bracket this year. We are not doing the State Journal, Madison.com is not doing a beer bracket this year, and that's okay. But I'm not out of the beer bracket business, as anybody who follows me on Twitter knows. we brought it in house. It's a Milwaukee beer bracket. So we've done a few of these brackets. So there's kind of a form to follow, but so we picked 16 Milwaukee beers, and we are now down to the final 4. And let me see if I can. Let's see. I know we've got Happy Place, River West Stein, Setlist IPA, and Louis Demise from Milwaukee Brewing. So Setlist is from Eagle Park, River West Stein, of course, Lakefront, and Happy Place, of course, Third Space. So a very worthy final 4 is some new and some old and some fresh and some hot. So fun stuff. You can go to MilwaukeeMag.com/beer bracket right now and cast your vote for the final 4, and then next week we'll be voting in the championship. So you can get involved in that, and it's just a lot of fun. And while you're there, you can sign up for Milwaukee Magazine subscription. My fellow, he used to be a beer writer, Will Gordon, out in Boston, tweeted today that he picked up that he started a subscription to my magazine, and I had no idea about this at all. And he tweeted something like, I love subscribing to random city magazine, like more or less random city magazines, because it's like a way of traveling there without actually going there. And I think that's a great point. Thanks, Will, for making that point. And so anyway, you can find information on subscribing to Milwaukee Magazine there. Or you can check out some great articles written by me or many, many other more talented people. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was I've got a column coming out this weekend on this bad boy. Whoop. and I don't know if you can see this. Ooh, that's ugly light. Okay. But Mobcraft has this beer called Fish Fry Rye, and they were kind enough to provide I guess sample of their beer advent calendar last year, and it was really it was a lot of fun kind of going through that and drinking day by day. I did not drink Mobcraft beer every day, but I finally got around to this one, Fish Fry Rye, in last month, and it turns out that it is awesome. It's based on a caraway rye. It's emulating it's a rye lager, and it's a Martin style lager. So it's a very low ABV kind of Oktoberfest style lager. And they have, but it's spiced up with rye, and then they have caraway seeds brewed with it. And it tastes like that rye caraway bread, which kind of tastes like beer. It's one of those rare like beers that doesn't taste like beer that I actually love. Normally I want beer that tastes like beer, but like there's something about this. Greg is just going no in the chat, and he's wrong. You gotta try it. It's a little like that. It kind of starts out like a kind of a standard Martin, and then the spice comes in, and I think it's the rye first, and then the caraway comes in, and it both of them kind of hit, and then they kind of meld together, and it's just one thing. And I know it sounds weird. It sounds like you're not going to have like more than one, but I drank 3 of them last night, and it was not because I was reviewing the beer. It was because it was really good. So,
geez.
Anyway, check that review out in a little bit more detail on Madison.com this weekend, and in Sunday's paper. If you want to buy the Wisconsin State Journal, you should, because it's a good newspaper. Still, Greg's still
all right.
Get out of here! You don't even know. Get.
And Greg Greg went to the dentist today, so he's refraining from joining us tonight, but he's very active in the chat. So he's here with us in spirit.
These are the hazards of pushing Badger Beer Hour back.
That's right.
Is we schedule everything around in our lives around Badger Beer Hour, and then
it's true.
So we end up with Greg with a puffy mouth. Yep.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our show tonight. That's all we got for March. That's all we got for March. Join us on April 19th at 8-ish, because we usually don't start right on time. So until then, cheers, Chris. See you next month.
Cheers, Landon. Cheers, Greg. Thanks for watching.